Yep, there we go.
Greetings. Thanks for checking in to this, our 74th conversation. We are three Black Pratt grads just talking photography. My name is Kenneth Nelson. I'm here with my good friends Mark Skinner and Greg Clayton. We're all graduates of the Fine Art Photography program at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, and each of us has decades of professional experience in various sectors of the commercial photography world. I would like to begin, as most of the time I usually do on my subjects, this conversation by asking the viewing audience a question to ponder during the conversation. Are you absolutely perfect in every way as a person?
Hey, wait a minute. Was that the question?
I'm asking the
Go
viewing
ahead.
audience
Okay,
that
all right,
question,
the
okay?
viewers.
With perfection, nothing is ever wrong, bad, unlikable, even threatening. If you were perfect, you wouldn't forget things. You wouldn't lose your balance, wear glasses, or take advantage in societal situations, such as cutting in front of another person in a vehicle. With the introduction of social media, there's come an increased impression of perfection to life.
Go get
Add,
him, Ken.
add
Go
an
get him.
advertising component to the mix, and there becomes an increased need to show perfection. Not many influencers or regular people online would describe their postings as normal, everyday, or average. Can you imagine that? My image is average. It may be boring to use averages words in a social media setting, but it's kind of weird that you don't do that. So, in this episode, we're not going to offer 5 secrets on becoming a better photographer. We're here to show you our mistakes, images that we'd edit out so they'd never be seen again. Again, we operate in a medium that exemplifies the pristine in almost every genre of photography. In recent years, there's been an adverse reaction to perfection to some degree. Most notably, the move for magazine to scale back or eliminate the amount of retouching applied to the images found in their pages, realizing that it offers readers a distorted real world view and even may foster dysmorphia. Dysmorphia, a notion that one's body part is deformed or less than perfect. So, with that long introduction, let's get right to the conversation of mistakes
You could go longer if you
with
want. I
Greg.
mean, that was good.
Greg, you're first up.
Yeah, yeah. This is another good topic, Mr. Nelson. Perfection is in the eye of the beholder. That old story of the woman with the mole or birthmark on her face, and the high-ranking so and so said, "Oh, if you just got rid of that, you'd be perfect." And she got rid of it, and she died. So perfection is kind of relative, but this is a good topic. Now, what I uh, what I kind of agree with that is like the whole HDR thing. Every pixel is got color or tone and texture, and sometimes it looks the super real, or if you over sharpen something, or if you over detail something or denoise something. Sometimes the best part of an image, like the old school film, is being able to see the grain, not seeing this super tack sharp image. And okay, like a personal thing, if I were to turn the lens on myself, like I'll see something I want to shoot, but um, what between what I'm seeing through my eye and what I'm trying to capture through the camera, they don't quite mesh all the time. So like this image, I know there's a shot there, but I can't. I know I didn't capture it the way I wanted to, so I just kind of gave up and I just took a snapshot of it. I like the colors in the glass. I like the chandelier, but I think they were kind of fighting with each other, and I couldn't quite, find a happy medium. So I mean, I didn't even bother to square it up and make all my corners nice and everything. I just kind of said, all right, you win. I just took a snapshot and, moved along. I don't think I would ever use this for anything or exhibit or play it or print it or anything. So, um, moving right along. My next one, I have
Well,
this
I
thing
just want to say
where,
one thing. I want
sorry,
to say
go ahead.
one thing. I would say that the stained glass style skylight juxtaposed against the crystal chandelier, that's something that the architects and the interior designer, they considered all the viewing angles that would be normal or standard in that situation. They don't just place these things arbitrarily. They make a point. So I think if you were to try to document that piece of art juxtaposed against that lamp, you would probably get the photograph that you were looking for because it's something that was considered when it was installed.
Okay, I don't doubt it. Maybe if I had a wider angle and I stood directly under the chandelier and shot straight up, just got a different angle on it, or
Or even
I
from the
mean,
doorway.
true, true, but what I mean, if you looked at that in context to the rest of the space, it was like the architects, they were going over the top opulence, and I think they, I don't think I missed the mark. If I was meant to see it the way they wanted me to see it, I don't feel like I did. I felt it was they kind of fight, it's Art Deco, a little Art Deco in the glass and everything, and then the chandelier. I just didn't feel like they, should be together. I would like
Kind
to
of
see
Art
more,
Nouvelle.
yeah, something more simple, more modern,
Art
something
Nouveau.
more simple. That would have worked for me. But I know there was a shot there. I just don't feel like I captured it.
Got it.
All right. Next one. I mean, when it comes to street stuff, I always seem to happen across some really interesting subject matter and
Oh
such.
my God.
But
Okay.
I know one of my pet issues is that I tend to get a little excited about the image, and I don't pay as much attention to the framing and certain other aspects of it. Like you probably wouldn't even. Okay, let me hear what you guys think of this image, and then I'll give you my pet peeve about it.
I'm okay with the framing. I mean, unless that slither at the bottom is part of a. If it's
Is
part
what?
of an automobile, if it's part of an automobile and you're looking out of a window, then I might say to you, maybe a little bit better. But otherwise, if it were part of the landscape in which the figure in the artwork and the chair exists, I would be very much okay with this framing.
Okay.
Working this working of the quadrilateral.
Okay.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Anything? You good with
I,
that, Ken?
I think the square within the square is an interesting concept. So, and in the real world, you don't have total control over everything that happens within the frame. So, the little things that you don't control that you can't take out of the frame to me are acceptable as part of the framing. So,
Okay.
I won't. I think the square in the square is fine. I think there's something to be said about the positioning of the body of the person versus the plate or the seat. It's kind of weird, but only weird in that what it could represent in a phallic thing way. So you got to make that statement there. But other than that, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Cool.
See, I didn't even. Like I said, I didn't even think of that, but what I did think of was that in a colloquial term, that figure as depicted is anything but a square, in the
Yeah.
slang term, a square. Like, so you've got a square, kind of a, rectangle, squares within squares, within another square, you've got like three sets of framing, but which we, for all
Frame
intents
within a frame
we can
within a
think of
frame.
square. Right, but we think of them squares, and that person's definitely not a square. There may be a lot of things, but a square is not one of the things that they are.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, yeah, granted, and I appreciate the input. But like my thing, I tended to get a little too excited, and I'll, like you were saying, that sliver of color in the bottom of the frame. I tend to do that a lot. A lot of times, unfortunately, I'm forced to choose whether I crop part of the important part of the image to make it clean,
Yep.
or you know
Yep.
I mean, do I try to Photoshop it out, or but right now I tend to, because I'm so excited at the imagery, and I watched him do this thing, and I'm watching him more than I'm and I'm trying to get that image, and I lose track of the rest of it. But I think it was worth it. So but yeah, that's probably my biggest pet peeve, imperfection. I tend to be chasing the subject matter and lose sight of the technical aesthetic things that make photography sometimes. So I'll get excess. No, what's that word? Extraneous things in the image that I didn't want, that I have to try to figure out, or do something with later, or try to eliminate later. But yeah, that's it. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me share.
Okay, good. Mark, you're up next.
All righty. Well, which image is going to be first? I don't know which one it would be. There's two. Oh, yes. Okay, here we go.
You only gave
This
me
is
one, right?
I thought I gave you another one, but I think that's I gave you. Oh, I remember. Yeah, I gave you one, and then we had a discussion about
Yep.
something, and I gave
Yep.
you this one. So this is the one image that I have. Right? Is that what we're going with? This is one, and
Yep.
I feel the mistake here is that, for all intents and purposes, here in the 21st century, the idea that you can't get closer to get the full frame of what you're looking for is kind of a lot less credible than it used to be. But in order to keep the same perspective as the frame of the camera I was using, which was just an old iPhone, I used the full frame. And the part that's very interesting is there's a telephone cable down at the bottom. Now the cables at the top work well with the image, but a mistake is, in my point of view, leaving in that slither of telephone cabling in there. Now, one could say it might add context or might give you a sense of dimension because it's really about the birds on the ledge. And it's a slightly rainy day. You're not really going to see them there exactly like that often. I mean, you might see them all there, but not exactly like that because that would not be probable. And so I thought it was a good photo for just something I just came across. But that lower left-hand corner, I believe, for my aesthetic, isn't resolved well. But if I were to cut the entire left side off, those two birds on the ledge above the wire wouldn't be visible. So for me, it makes much more sense to just leave it in and kind of explain it away in a program like this. But in real life, I wouldn't even show it.
And you wouldn't show it because you can't remove the wire at the bottom to your satisfaction.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all work with certain levels of idea or intention
Right.
about how we're going to create a photo. I mean, the second you snap the photo, you know what it is that you saw that made you snap the photo. Even if it's after the fact, and you know whether you've gotten it correctly in the frame or not. And you also know whether or not, well, it would have been improved if I had stood back a little bit and got more of whatever this is I'm photographing. And you also know at this point whether or not, or we, I should say, all know at this point whether or not we should have been closer. And I think in this particular case, because I could not find a way to eliminate that cabling in the front, it doesn't really, not if I wanted to keep those two birds on the straight part of that ledge. There's a bay window, and they're all along the arc, but I wanted to keep those birds there to sort of counter the birds that are kind of on the ledge on the right side. The implication of birds on the ledge on the right side. I could have tilted it a little bit more to kind of perfectly even it out, but since the cables were there, it didn't really matter. And I think it's really important that there are going to be, sort of precious photographs that you either have to decide that you're going to retouch them to remove the cables, because the image is so gripping, or you're going to just not bother showing it because there are a lot of images that are pretty much easy to get. And if you just couldn't get it right in camera, in this instance, maybe you just have the idea of a photo and you don't really have a photo. And so the mistake I've made is I've created an image and I've presented it thinking I have an image when in actuality, a great image, but in actuality, I have an okay image with a big mistake in it.
But it's Brooklyn. It's like so many. It's an old neighborhood. They didn't bury the cables. There's gonna be cables all over everything. That's part of Brooklyn. I mean, but I understand what you're saying. Though. That's all I got.
Right. I mean, it's the same philosophy of Robert Capa's "You're not close enough," right? I mean,
Yeah.
and that's before all those long telephoto lenses and long zoom lenses were prevalent. I mean, that's somebody who understands you gotta be able to show your subject. And if my subject is obscured by cabling because I have not positioned myself properly, then I have to decide as an artist whether or not it's a failed photograph. And in this case, I would say it's a failed photograph, or certainly less than perfect. To go back to what Ken was talking about earlier, less than perfect image. And subsequently, my standard is, well, am I going to show this level of imperfection, or am I going to hold myself to a higher standard and then not present this, but work and then just present other images that I think are just as good?
Yep, that's the dilemma. That is it in a nutshell for the most part. Yep, great job, guys. Great job. Okay, I'll pick it up here for now, and I think I'm going to be relatively quick about this. So I'll just begin and share something. As you know, I do a lot of street. I'm primarily a street photographer. So this is part of an image, a series that I've been working on for years, which is Coney Island House, and these are dancers dancing. And so the rationale is, you're in there, you're taking. I am taking quite a lot of photographs, and sometimes I get caught up in the moment, and the music gets you, and you just start snapping away indiscriminately. And and then you come back home and you realize that was dumb of me. Why did I take that shot? Now, granted, in this
I
particular,
love the energy in this one. If you think it's a bad image, okay,
it
I
is.
understand. But
It is.
I like the energy in it.
Yeah, it's not to me, it's not successful. And the only thing that I think works is, of course, that the hand coming out of what looks like nowhere. And but yeah, it wouldn't be something because there's no center of focus or anything except the hand. And beyond that, there's so much in the frame that it just has no. It doesn't grab me too much. So this will be, in fact, if I think I kept it, I think I pulled this out a couple of days ago, but by tomorrow it won't even be in my archive. It'll be deleted.
Wow.
But I just
Well,
wanted to show you. Go ahead, Mark. You have a question?
I was gonna say there are a couple of things going on here. It's like there's a bunch of different little photos. You know, there's the arm that's on the shoulder, and the contrast that, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but the contrast between the two skin tones. Then there's the like you said, the hand coming up out of nowhere behind the guy's head. But
Yeah.
then there's also the figure that's sort of growing up out of the woman's shoulder, but he's sort of in between those two high rises.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a lot of different little things going on.
Uh-huh.
And maybe it's a great photo, but at the same time, you feel it's not to the standard that you're looking for. So then you have to, kind of
Yeah.
decide,
It's
do I
too
put it
confusing.
aside?
Yeah, it's too
Well,
confusing, and I don't think I'm close enough, to be honest.
okay. All right.
Yeah. And I just want to show you what the image now. This is for the most part, an unedited image, right out of it's basically a raw shot, right? And I just show you that's what my edited shot would have looked like had I kept it.
See, I liked the original more.
Right. So that's the original, which is sort of flat.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like that.
Really lacks a lot of contrast of the day.
Right.
Right. But this is the way I would select the image and use it had I been using it, because I've realized that for me, there's a need for a lot of pop in the images. So I've begun to create a curve that is more contrastier than normal. So with that, I'll go to that, and I'll just do a last one because I have a second set of images, and that's this particular one. And this particular one involves one of the techniques, of course, of street photography, which is shooting from the hip. And when you shoot from the hip, you're not looking through camera, so there's a lot of misses, and you don't see all the misses. Well, this is one of my misses. All right.
Right.
And so, what's happening is that I'm walking along the street, and people are walking by me, and I'm feeling energy in some way. And I think I have the framing right, because my camera's at chest level and I'm aiming the camera straight. But in fact, I'm aiming it too low. So therefore, I miss the facial features, and it's cropped head. The heads are cropped off at the eye. So that right there makes it unsuccessful and unusable. Also, what's interesting also is that with shooting from the hip, sometimes your subject is not well framed. In other words, what I mean by that is they might not be towards center. They might be running off the edge of the frame, and to some degree, that's an accepted thing within street photography, but I think there should be a level of unacceptability within that, to each his own. This for me is just too much, and not enough of anything. And so it's one of those, again, one of those things that I would not have shown, and I would have just deleted it as soon as I made the first round of edits.
Believe it or not, I don't have a problem with the eyes being cut off just there. What I do have a problem with is on the right side. Unfortunately, the one person who we can see isn't really engaging in the photograph. I mean,
Right.
you could pretty much crop right at that street lamp, between the figure walking from right to left,
Hmm.
and just below the shoulder, just below the elbow of the yellow coat. And you can keep the
Okay.
guy on the left. And I hate to say it, but if you cut there you go. I think somewhere in there, you know, if that were a full frame photo, maybe not as engaging if you saw the other woman's eyes, but if you saw a little bit more of his sunglasses and just a little bit more of her nose, you wouldn't have to
Hmm.
see her eyes for that to be kind of I think that would be kind of a full frame, interesting image. The
Yeah.
light is really stark, and it's really about how articulated her hands are.
Yeah.
And then the fact that his hands are just hidden in the pockets, I think that's a really nice, his eyes would be visible but not visible. Her eyes would be not visible. Her hands are very visible, but his hands are not visible.
Hmm.
Her colors of her apparel is very bright. The color of his apparel is very dark.
Hmm.
So it'd be all about contrast. Her scarf is open and flowing. His scarf is wrapped up. So I see where you're, kind of going, with your intention on this photo. But at
Yeah.
the same
It's
time,
kind of editorial. It
yeah,
almost
it's
looks
very
like
editorial.
a Macy's ad, for the coat or the scarf or its apparel.
Yeah, it also looks like
It's
an
interesting.
editorial, like an article, like an illustration about something going on in New York. Not necessarily what they're wearing, but getting. I don't know if this is post or pre-COVID. I'm presuming it's
Fall
pre-COVID. But
No,
style.
it's during COVID. I'm sorry,
oh,
this is
really?
pre-COVID. I'm sorry, this is pre-COVID.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I were to see this week, it would be sort of like, returning to normal, or returning, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And you don't necessarily want to identify the individuals who'd be maskless, but at the same time, you see that there's a kind of, people are kind of less than 6 feet apart. So, I would buy that.
Yeah. Greg,
Yes,
your
sir.
thoughts? Your thoughts?
I'm gonna go roll with the editorial. I could see your unhappiness with it for the reason that you stated, but I think it's not what I normally see of your work, but I could see it leaning toward, and I can see why you don't like it because it does lean towards editorial. Um, like Mark said, you could find statements in it, but then it would be like if you had put a title on it, so the viewer would be looking for
Yeah.
what it is that you intended.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I see. And thanks for this topic. It makes you really think about what the intention of photography. We should do probably another uh, episode on photographic intent, or at the beginning when we talked about
Mhm.
what was that we said, like the secrets of photography. We should do another episode on the secrets of photography and photography and photographic intent. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'll just make one point in closing out, at least in my point of view, which is I find it interesting because I think we went to, of course, we all went to Pratt, and so therefore you were given an image. Say, for instance, you went to a gallery and you were given an image, and they put this image in the wall, and they say this is a photograph, and this is what we consider art, and you can't make heads or tails of what it means, where it's going, or why it's there, right? Because it makes no sense to you,
Like a
right?
rayogram.
Okay,
It's a comb.
maybe
Okay.
you're right, right.
Okay.
Well, maybe
Man Ray.
something more
No, no,
literal than
not
abstract, because
shading. Not shading on Man Ray. I enjoy
Mhm.
his work.
Yeah. But just the
It
notion.
was cheaper. It was cheaper than film. You just put a comb on the larger and you make a paper print. So
Just a statement that it's kind of interesting because as I presented that last image to you, as it's an edit that I would have not even shown you, you yourself made occasions to make reference for it as a valid piece.
Image, yeah.
Right. So I think it's kind of interesting that for myself, it's nothing, but for you, it's something. And I think
Well,
that in itself has a certain thing that needs further conversation about it. Maybe
yeah,
not
I
here.
mean, I think, yeah, I agree. I think for me, it's always about producing a deliverable at this point. You know what I mean? So you know exactly what I mean. It's like, when we were in the studio, we shot to crop. Very rarely did we photograph something in the catalog studio that was going to be the full frame. So even if I'm trying to get the full frame initially, the end result has to be a deliverable, whether it's cropped or not. And so even when I see photographs that are imperfect, if I know that I can sort of crop it to get what we're really trying to get, it's something I'll consider. I try not to do it,
Yeah.
but it's a consideration.
Yeah. And I'll just close off my comments by saying, I just recall in the last, I'd say how many years I've been working in digital asset management for quite a while now, and the images that we see going into advertising and is kind of interesting, and to get up to sort of work with photographers who are out there shooting these ads. And what's interesting is that they'll be shooting, say, a blue dress, and what they'll do is they'll shoot 150 versions of this model in the blue dress, right? 150 versions of the model in the blue dress. Now, it's going to come back. Now, not all of them are going to be perfect, right? So all they're doing is, for the most part, going click, 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 And so you got to come back to the art director and say, okay, which one of those clicks best represents what I'm going for? That one. But meanwhile, it's kind of a weird dynamic that you have to spend 150 images to get the one click.
Right, but because you're what you're doing is you're selecting
Mm-hmm.
where the model, if it's one where it's a figure and the figure's eyes are in it, you have to make sure the
Yeah.
expression is right. You're trying to make sure the hands are in the right place. You're trying to make sure that if there's tags that haven't been removed, or if there's something that it just doesn't look right or the lighting is off. So there are a lot of things to consider. So you have to create that volume to get a record of that garment or that ensemble. And so from that record, then you select, because I'm sure the art director had an initial idea. It might
Yeah,
have
it is.
just been as simple as a model standing straight up and down. But even in that variant, are they standing straight up and down with a purse in their hand? Or are they standing straight up and down with a water bottle in their hand? What are the accoutrements that go along with that image, and are they standing straight up and down at just enough angle so you can see 3/4 view? So there are so many variants that have to be considered. But I apologize.
Yeah.
But also, like you said in the introduction of the topic, I mean, people are so wrapped up now on the perfect image, the best image, or, like you were saying, the perfect body type. You know, let me see, a little muffin top every now and then. Let me see, the throwaways, or what they used to do. I'm sure you remember, when they would do like an editorial spread, and they would print the contact sheet
Yeah.
in the.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how they got to that final shot.
Yeah.
That might be something that could be, because,
Yes.
like you said, these profile photographers, even they go through a process.
Yeah.
And then when they see something they think is the best, the art director takes a look and says, "Oh my God, no, this one." So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's
Right. The
it's it's a
contact sheet is
process.
something you don't really see anymore. It's a very
It's a
precious
process.
tool. That is one thing I will say I miss about analog photography is the contact sheet.
Yeah.
Even more so than the putting all the chromes on a light table, because with a contact sheet you get the succession and you get a sense. You get to re-examine how you approached the subject and how you got to where you got to that image. So that's a whole other thing.
Yep. Okay, guys, we've come to a point where we have to close out. So I just want to ask if any of you guys have any closing statements about today's topic.
Keep
Yeah.
shooting.
Okay, great.
Learn
Okay.
your equipment. Yeah, that's it.
The viewing audience, we want to thank you for joining us, and we're glad that you stayed until now. Please leave a comment, ask us a question about anything you've heard in this episode, and we'll get right back to you. We are the Three Black Grads. I'm Kenneth Nelson with Mark Skinner, Greg Cleghorn. Thanks for joining. Check us in next time.